Okay, so today I want to make a Neurobass out of Wavetable and stock Ableton plugins. So there's going to be a few tricks in here. The end result should sound something like this. But those are examples I made earlier, and who knows where we'll wind up. All right, we're going to start fresh. Let's find ourselves a wavetable. All right, it's a nice sub we got going on there. I like saw for this. We'll keep the sub at the same octave. And just so we can see what we're doing. I really like the modern effects on Wavetable. So without the sub, yeah. So we really want the sub in there just to reinforce that low F. Filter. We definitely want some movement in that range. And the amp envelope, we're not really going to use that today, so let's bring in the release. Cool. And the envelopes we are going to use a fair bit today. So the envelope 2 on filter frequency, cool, that's too plucky. Cool, we're getting somewhere. You can also put that envelope on the amp. If I bring the envelopes down so it stops, you can see that the amount that the envelope 2 affects the amp by controls the overall amplitude now. So the amp envelope is still being used. If we bring it, we get nothing. So you still want the amp envelope up, but then the envelope 2 is modifying it again on top of that. So for our purposes, we've got sustain all the way up, and then envelope 2 is doing all of the work on both the filter and on the amplitude. So what else can we map envelope 2 to? Let's map it to the fold. We'll bring it up a little. So we're getting something interesting there. I've made the envelope a little bit more sensible so we can kind of get a feel for what's going on across the sound. So that's nice. We can push fold a little bit more. I wonder if LFO on fold. Yeah, that's a bit nicer. There's some movement in there. Let's add a second oscillator in. When I'm making basses with multiple oscillators, I like to make sure they're not just all playing at the same note. So we've got the sub at the fundamental frequency. We've got the saw doing its thing in the mid-range, and then we want the second main oscillator filling out more of the top end. So here's what we've got currently. If we add oscillator 2, and we'll sweep through some waveforms. Okay, I like that. I'll turn off oscillator 1 so you can hear what's going on. Cool, let's try some different effects. Where we sync. Yeah, let's get some movement on the pulse width. Alright, so we'll add oscillator 1 back in. Let's bring the volume down of oscillator 2. You know what, I think the pulse width is a bit too much. Now we're talking. I think when pulse width hits okay, I kind of like that. So under our mod sources, let's go back to envelope 2 and start making it sound a bit more Neuro-y. So in order to keep the envelope re-triggering so I don't have to keep tapping the keyboard, what I like to do here is put it on loop, and that'll loop the envelope. So after it plays the attack portion of the envelope and the decay portion of the envelope, it'll skip the sustain and move over to the release phase. So because the release phase is quite long at the moment, there's going to be a delay between each of our pulses. We want to bring the release phase way back. So now we're getting some nice action there. Also, you can adjust the curve of the envelopes. And that's going to modify the rate of the climb for the attack and the decay portions. It's really important to manage those to get different textures out of your noise. I don't feel like it's knocking the filter around enough. There we go. So I find that Neurobasses are all about movement in those low mids. So I'm trying to like get a feel for what happens with the filter envelope. So that lets most of the sound through, and if I bring it down, I want to have a nice controllable range of where the noise happens by moving this dot around. Cool. So that's an okay kind of start for the sound. Now we want to use some effects to make it even better. We're going to start with a whole bunch of distortion effects. So I'm just going to go through here and grab anything that I think might be useful to us. Let's try drum bus. Why not? Dynamic tube, I like it, but not today. Glue. Overdrive. Pedal is heaps of fun. Saturator. Cool, that gives us a few distortion options. So we'll group those and we'll just mess around with them. I'm going to set all of the dry wets to 0 so we can bring them in one at a time. Does drum bus even have a dry wet? Oh, it does. So we can probably get away with some hard distortion on that. It's a bit much. Cool. So far we've got this before, after. All right, let's okay, so now we've got before and after. So it's getting a lot more raspy in the top end. Pedal should do some interesting stuff. We'll try fuzz, we'll boost these guys. So I'm just trying to, you can hear when we push the gain, it sounds great. But I'm trying not to go just all out distortion here. We're just adding gentle layers of distortion. Because we're using that distortion to accentuate stuff that's already there. We don't necessarily want to just obliterate anything we put through here. Let's do some saturator. I already know roughly what I want to do with saturator here. Let's try a harder curve. Oh. Hard curve's a bit too much. Cool, so we've added 4 different distortions. Starting to get there. Glue compressor. I really like the saturation on glue compressor. It's just distorts nicely. Yeah, cool. That's doing something. All right, so overall we've gone from this to this. And we can still modulate everything. All right, we've got a bit too much distortion overall. Let's back it off just a bit. Cool, it's still a little bit too much. I think it's actually the square that I'm hearing, so it's fine. So that's our distortion rack. We are going to group that rack again, and then we're going to make that chain called distort. We're going to put some EQs in here. So we're going to preserve the sub so that it's not getting distorted like everything else. Easy way to do that is to EQ out the sub from our distortion chain. I do it after the distortions, so the sub still feeds into the distortions and gets distorted, but then we take out the original signal. So we still get plenty of nice harmonics from it, and we're still keeping our sub nice and clear. Have we created a weird dip? No, we're okay. Might speed that up a bit. Cool. So that's our distortions. So one thing that I really like on Neurobass is a comb filter. Ableton doesn't appear to have a comb filter built in, but we can make one out of delay. So delay by itself does delay things. If you turn sync off and bring the times right down, it's essentially, and turn the filter off, it's essentially a comb filter. So you can hear it. So it's not the easiest to use comb filter, because you've got to time your milliseconds to your pitch if you want to get things perfect. So we've got our comb filter. I'm going to set it up so that it doesn't interfere with our sub, and we can blend the comb filtering back in. So I've set the dry wet to 100%. We're going to make a new chain which is dry, and we're going to make sure that we take out the sub on our comb filter channel. So that's going to give us a subless comb channel and a full frequency dry channel. Okay, so our comb channel, things that we might want to play with are our time, which controls the pitch of the comb filtering, the feedback, which controls the strength of it, and that's about it. You can also map the filter, but I'm not going to do that today. That lets you kind of narrow in on where the which frequencies you're affecting. So we can bring down the filter time, so we've got a bit more control over it. Let's see if that maximum. Cool, and then we'll add in a macro for the chain volume, so we can control the volume of the comb filters compared to the original signal. So you can hear that it's adding that metallic overtone. Okay, then we're adding all modulators, which I've already done a video on. So I'll get rid of, oh, so that's made it pretty effecty. I'll get rid of some of these. Cool, and whenever dealing with unpredictable signals, it's good to have a limiter on the end. So we've now got a pretty interesting Neurobass. The effects are a little bit too strong for me. I'm just going to wind them back. Flanges probably not required. Wide. I think it's the chorus that's too much. Cool, and frequency shifter will bring it down. Yeah, and so now it's just a matter of recording a bunch of takes of mucking around with the envelope or anything else that you want to play with until you get some cool samples. So I'll set up this to take its input from there. Hit record and see what we get. Yeah, and you can pretty much keep going forever. There's nothing that's going to stop you just mucking around and recording it. And so then how do you go about using that? Well, you just chop up the audio. Here's a quick example that I put together. It's just our wavetable samples that I recorded, chopped up and rearranged, some of them time stretched and so on. Here we go. Hope that gives you some ideas about how to create new and different Neurobasses using a tool that you already have. It's pretty easy. Make a sound that has some movement, distort the crap out of it, add some further movement in with modulators. And yeah, if you feel like it, try some comb filtering. I think it really adds something extra and interesting to bass sounds. Have a good one.